Welcome to your week in review here on WINN FM 98.9 for the period April 7th through 12th, 2025. Making the news last week, Agriculture Minister the Honorable Samuel Duggins provides insights on GEZ MOU.
SEDIMA encourages self-reliance within the region as geopolitical tensions rise globally.
Trump tariffs trigger Caribbean concerns over economic impact.
Roger Williams ranks second in World Bank's essay competition on poverty. Discusses perspective at webinar.
Police charge Aubrey Webster with the murder of Iselin Pitt.
St. Kitts and Nevis not in drought alert zone, but authorities continue to encourage preparedness and responsible water use.
St. Christopher National Trust provides update on Treasury building restoration.
Slaying of staff nurse sends shockwaves across St. Kitts and Nevis. The St. Kitts and Nevis National Carnival Sugar Mass has become globally renowned, exemplifying the spread and evolution of the festival.
Now, the details. In a recent broadcast of In Focus on April 9th, 2025, the Honorable Samuel Duggins, Minister of Sports, Agriculture, Fisheries and Marine Resources, Small Business, Entrepreneurship, Cooperatives and the Creative Economy, elaborated on the fruitful working visit to Nigeria where the delegation from the Federation attended the Afri-Caribbean Investment Summit. During the summit, a significant memorandum of understanding was signed between the Green Economic Zone in Nigeria and St. Kitts and Nevis, aiming to establish a dynamic partnership that both nations hope will mutually benefit.
This is one of the largest agricultural movements or institutions in the entire Nigeria, and by extension, one of the largest in Africa. It is pretty much a sovereign within the country. So it controls its own taxes, it controls its own, the development of what is grown, how, and where it is sold to.
Emphasizing the impactful nature of their partnership. The MOU signifies a commitment to leverage the resources and capabilities of both nations, allowing St. Kitts and Nevis to explore agricultural production opportunities that cater to a vast African market. The minister illustrated the potential for St. Kitts and Nevis products to gain traction in Nigeria, drawing parallels to the McKinley Company, which produces Tabasco hot sauce on a small island yet achieves global distribution.
I am now looking at that framework to seeing how St. Kitts and Nevis can play in the same global space. And MOUs like these open those avenues very wide for us to walk into that space.
Underscoring the possibility of exporting unique products from the Caribbean directly to Nigerian consumers. Duggins highlighted the prospect of producing St. Kitts and Nevis branded products such as hot sauce and jams that could be marketed effectively in Nigeria.
We do hot sauce very well. Why can't we have a St. Kitts and Nevis branded hot sauce, or a few of those that are in Nigeria on the shelves?
Pushing for a branding strategy that stands out among competitors. The conversation turned to the economic implications of this collaboration. Host Ian Richards asked Duggins how the new arrangements would affect taxes and tariffs between the nations. Duggins clarified that the agreements established with the GEZ were unique.
Our agreement with them is still outside of the scope of the country of Nigeria.
The arrangement would streamline the import process for St. Kitts and Nevis products and facilitate easier access to Nigerian goods. This cooperation addresses the current trade imbalances faced by the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Duggins noted that the country typically imports 98% of its consumables from the U.S. market, underscoring the need to diversify sources.
We see what is happening there now. We are saying now, let us diversify and get some of that from Africa.
The minister recognized concerns about potential competition from Nigerian products impacting local agricultural businesses.
Not at all. We are currently facing the same thing from the United States.
Duggins explained that the trade dynamics would improve overall agricultural outputs and as such enhance market competition, benefiting local farmers as well. In response to inquiries about the anticipated knowledge exchange and technical expertise from Nigeria, Duggins confirmed that this would indeed be a focus of the MOU. He noted that technical expertise transfer would allow both nations to share valuable insights in agricultural practices. This would highlight St. Kitts and Nevis's advanced approaches to climate resilience, which could serve as a learning opportunity for Nigeria. As discussions culminated, Richards inquired about the potential agro hub and how it would reshape trade opportunities.
So there's actually a physical space that is going to be built out. But outside of the physical space, it's also a conceptual space.
The Agriculture Minister emphasized that this initiative would not only enable increased accessibility to goods from Nigeria, but also potentially revolutionize the agricultural landscape in St. Kitts and Nevis by leveraging the strengths of both countries in the market. Minister Duggins reiterated the shared objective of improving trade and fostering a robust agricultural sector that benefits both nations.
We are saying let us trade some of that with Africa. It is just that simple. Let us trade some of that with Africa.
This partnership is poised to open new avenues of economic development and cooperation between the Caribbean and West Africa, setting the stage for a promising future in agricultural trade. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank ECCB convened its 9th annual Growth and Resilience Dialogue with social partners to run from April 10th to 11th, 2025 at the ECCB headquarters, Sir Cecil Jacobs Auditorium in St. Kitts, under the theme, In the Pursuit of Extraordinary Excellence. The two-day conference serves as a platform to address critical economic challenges and opportunities facing the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, ECCU. In his opening remarks, ECCB Governor Timothy N.J. Antwine underscored the importance of the bank's Big Push agenda. Building resilience, human capital development, digital transformation, accelerating the renewable energy transition, and wealth creation through innovation and financial inclusion are key areas crucial for accelerating and sustaining growth. Acknowledging the turbulent global economic landscape, Antwine stated,
"Our guiding theme is In Pursuit of Extraordinary Excellence. It ought to remind us of the bold actions required to deliver a big push agenda, which simply put, is to double the size of our economies for shared prosperity for all." I must confess, I had intended to limit my remarks to the theme and sub-themes of this dialogue.
However, he felt compelled to address the current macroeconomic climate by quoting Jack Welch, the former CEO and chair of General Electric. He urged attendees to
embrace reality as it is, not as you would like it to be. Ladies and gentlemen, our dialogue convenes in a VUCA world. That is, a world characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. However, in light of the fundamental restructuring of the global economy now underway, the likes of which we have not seen since the Second World War, I am taking VUCA one step further by suggesting we are living in a VUCA with a AA world. What do I mean? A world pregnant with volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity, and anxiety.
He cited inflation and a slowing global economy exacerbated by tariff wars as immediate concerns.
Inflation is a tax on everyone because it reduces the purchasing power of all. However, it is a particularly pernicious tax on the poor and our most vulnerable families, as well as businesses, many of which are micro and small. Furthermore, the imposition of fines on ships originating out of China or made in China would increase shipping costs exorbitantly and also lead to significant price hikes on goods, included in the construction sector, and raises the real prospect of unavailability or unaffordability, and that is something we have to contend with.
Simply put, increased shipping costs and price hikes due to fines on ships originating from or made in China could disproportionately affect the construction sector. Despite these challenges, Dr. Antwine reassured the public about the strength of the EC dollar.
We know this morning that our EC dollar remains strong. Yes, we know that for a certain fact. At this moment, the backing is 98%. The law requires us to be at 60%, with foreign reserves of $6 billion and growing. Our EC dollar has stood the test of time.
He attributed this stability to the ECCB's long-standing conservative policy of maintaining high stocks in foreign reserves. He dismissed any speculation about devaluation, stating,
"So all this speculation about the devaluation of the EC dollar, that's one thing you do not have to worry about."
Governor Antwine urged the region to adopt a youth mindset, framing challenges as opportunities for greater self-reliance and resilience.
Such a mindset reframes our current challenges as opportunities and could propel our region in our lifelong pursuit of greater self-reliance and resilience. Second, we must now intensify our focus and implementation of the Big Push agenda, especially in the pursuit of food and nutrition security and energy security. And third, we must accelerate the scope and pace of regional integration and collective action.
He noted the challenges of the region's high food import bill, stating,
"We have considerable work to do to reduce our food import bill because, as you can see, over the last several years, rather than declining, it has actually increased. And the thing about it is that when the economy rebounds, as we did after the pandemic, food imports actually go up. And that's what we've seen. So we got to get our food imports down, significantly down."
He noted that the ECCB recently disbursed $25 million to member countries to support efforts to boost food production. Regarding energy security, Governor Antoine highlighted the ECCB's investment in a 1 megawatt solar farm.
At ECCB, we, rather than lament our dependence on fossil fuels and the high cost of electricity, what did we do? We invested in a 1 megawatt solar farm, which you would have seen on entry to the bank, the largest non-utility plant in the ECCU.
Governor Antoine confirmed that the solar PV powers the ongoing dialogue and that the bank now saves $1.8 million annually in avoided energy costs. He welcomed the OECS Ministers of Energy's announcement of the Sustainable Green Energy Print, which aims to accelerate the transition to renewable energy.
Later this year, we hope to have Dominica come online with their 10 megawatt plant. They're looking towards, I think, December. We also know that in Nevis and in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis generally, there are significant plans to have geothermal in the Federation, and we are fully encouraging and supportive of those efforts, among others.
Governor Antoine challenged the region to reimagine its tourism model, drawing inspiration from Singapore.
Why limit ourselves to a seasonal tourism model? Consider Singapore, for example, which is on track to surpass its record for international arrivals this year. What is the secret? Singapore ensures that every season is a tourist season. It enhances attractions, accelerates digital transformation, uses strategic marketing, and expands global outreach. And therefore, they are in a position, Singapore, to keep their tourism offerings relevant all year long.
He suggested exploring opportunities to become a hub for remote work and enhancing attractions to keep tourism offerings relevant year-round. Addressing the importance of data, Governor Antoine quoted British mathematician Clive Humbly, stating,
"Data is the new oil," suggesting that like oil, data must be refined and processed to unlock its true value. There are several challenges with data in our region.
He emphasized the need for a well-crafted data and AI strategy to enhance operational efficiencies and drive competitiveness. In concluding remarks, the governor emphasized the need for relentless pursuit of excellence. Referencing the collapse of the West Indies Federation in 1962, he urged the region to stand in solidarity and act together.
As the global economy fractures and restructures, will we come together to meet this moment? And will we do for ourselves what we can and must do for ourselves at home while we strenuously advocate abroad for just outcomes for small states such as ours? As we pursue our quest for extraordinary excellence, never forget, as a region, we cannot change our history and we cannot change our geography, but we can and must elevate our development trajectory through innovation and collective action.
The 9th Annual Growth and Resilience Dialogue was a collaborative effort between the ECCB, the OECS Commission, and the University of the West Indies, UE, and the World Bank. Dr. Didacus Jules, OECS Director General, emphasized the need for innovative approaches to navigate geopolitical shocks, urging the region to strive for an environment unaffected by such challenges.
We are gathered here once again in collective pursuit of transformation. Transformation that is not merely incremental, but bold, visionary, and urgent, as you've heard from Governor Antoine.
Highlighting the pressing need for action as expressed by ECCB Governor Timothy N.J. Antoine. Dr. Jules described the current era as a year of extraordinary entropy, stemming from the concepts initially developed by the U.S. Military College after the fall of the Soviet Union.
The law of entropy, as those of us who've done science knows, states that in a closed system, things tend to move from order to disorder unless energy is applied to maintain and restore order.
Dr. Jules noted, urging participants to apply this understanding to contemporary global dynamics.
Conflicts in regions like Eastern Europe, the Middle East, parts of Africa, signal an erosion of diplomatic order and an increase in volatility, entropy in action. Global governance mechanisms like the UN, the WTO, are struggling now to enforce norms and to maintain balance, suggesting a drift towards chaos unless actively reinvigorated. The second expression of entropy is on a planetary scale. Climate systems are becoming less predictable and more extreme. Heat waves, superstorms, floods. In fact, I just learned yesterday, I don't know how accurate it is, someone told me that the coming season we expect over 17 severe storms. Without effective intervention, we are witnessing a rising tide of disorder in ecosystems, agriculture, and weather patterns. The third is a disordered abundance of technology and information. The digital age has flooded humanity with unprecedented volumes of information, but not necessarily more clarity. So let's be clear about the IT revolution. It has its positives as well as its negatives. Social cohesion. We see misinformation, deepfakes, AI-generated content, muddying understanding. Social cohesion is challenged by information entropy. Truth and falsehood mix freely, degrading trust in institutions and media. At the same time, technology also offers tools to impose new kinds of order, but these require intentional design and oversight. The fourth and last one is mental and social entropy in human systems. Burnout, loneliness, mental health crises. Many people feel emotionally and socially disordered in today's hyper-connected, high-pressure world. Societies struggle to find shared narratives or values, and polarization is rising across political, cultural, and generational lines.
He outlined 4 significant spheres where entropy is evident: increasing disorder in geopolitical systems, unpredictable climate patterns, an overwhelming abundance of information undermining social cohesion, and mental health challenges arising from today's high-pressure, high-connected world.
This year's theme, In Pursuit of Extraordinary Excellence, invites us to break free from the bonds of business as usual. And I'm on the same page with Governor in that regard. Break free from those bonds of business as usual. This is not just about thinking ahead of the curve. It is also thinking differently about what we need to do. We need to embrace radical shifts required for the region to thrive in the 21st century.
Dr. Jules highlighted attendees' core challenge: to summon the courage needed to combat the entropy defining these times. He reiterated the OECS Commission's mission, emphasizing that collaboration should take precedence over competition and that the focus should be on building resilient systems. The OECS Director General described the 4 selected pillars for discussion: economic, social, data, and infrastructure opportunities, urging delegates to envision how to foster a transformative agenda. Drawing upon wisdom of Caribbean art and culture, he quoted the late Calypsonian Black Stalin, reminding attendees that resilience and gratitude are vital in prosperous and challenging times.
The ambition before us is not about chasing growth for growth's sake. It is about shaping a future where our people live healthier, more empowered lives, where our economies are sustainable and shock-proof,
reinforcing the importance of valuing cultural wealth alongside financial assets. As he concluded, he reiterated the importance of the partnership fostered by the dialogue.
In the Caribbean, we are famous for talk. But this year's dialogue should not just be a forum of ideas, but a catalyst for action. Let us commit with urgency and unity to the pursuit of excellence, not just as an aspiration, but as an urgent expectation.
The conference discussions aligned with the ECCB's goal of fostering practical solutions to advance the region's economic and social landscapes, reinforcing the vital role of collaborative efforts among government, the private sector, academia, civil society, and international partners. The dialogue is an invitation for further conversations and actionable steps toward realizing the goals during this transformative event.
Colorado State University issued its 2025 forecast for the Atlantic Basin hurricane season, signaling an above-normal season. The institution forecasted 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. The forecast comes amid rising geopolitical tensions, which have raised a concerning level of uncertainty about financial and technical support arrangements through traditional partnerships. Speaking at the official opening ceremony of the 16th meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency CDEMA on April 8, Elizabeth Riley, Chief Executive Officer, said the membership has taken note of the concerns which are being assessed collectively.
We are all assessing the evolving implications of recent geopolitical shifts on our national as well as regional readiness. Signals are that some previous financial and technical support arrangements through traditional partnerships are now uncertain. There is already evidence of disruption to financial and technical support to CARICOM member states, affecting bilateral agreements and regional disaster risk management efforts.
This vulnerability of hazardous impacts and geopolitical tensions reiterates the need for CDEMA member states to prepare. Identifying 4 key areas, Riley said the region has begun to pivot, identify mitigation measures to ensure operational readiness, and advance CDEMA's strategic plan 2022 to 2027.
Whilst there are many things that we don't know, I think there are 4 things that are certain. 1 is that the geopolitical shifts have exposed the high risk exposure of our systems in the region, including the regional response mechanism. 2, that the Caribbean community must make an intentional pivot towards greater self-reliance by deepening and expanding national and regional capacity and capability, further pooling of our resources, and engaging new and non-traditional partners. This also reinforces the need for timely and full payment of contributions to the regional institutions which provide services to the regional response mechanism, as well as the provision of appropriate and adequate human resources within our national systems. So there are many levels at which we do have to be more intentional about our actions. Third, the opportunity exists to articulate a long-term strategic vision for the Caribbean community informed by strategic foresight, which builds sustained capacity and self-reliance in addressing the diverse and complex hazards which affect our people, and this opportunity must be grasped. And finally, at this midway juncture of our 5-year strategic plan, the strategic decision of our Council of Ministers in 2023 to move forward with the organizational restructuring of CDEMA and to establish a multi-source trust fund which diversifies and provides sustainable financing for CDEMA, it was a correct decision.
In 2024, the region encountered diverse and complex hazardous experiences, from wildfires in Brazil to an oil spill offshore of Tobago, excess heat waves, and Hurricane Beryl in the Windward Islands, reflective of the threats posed by climate change. As the 2025 Atlantic Basin hurricane season approaches, the region's vulnerability to hazards remains at the forefront of regional discussions.
U.S. President Donald Trump's latest wave of tariffs has come into force, with imports from China facing a staggering 104% rate amidst escalating tensions between the world's 2 largest economies. These tariffs, ranging from 11% to 104%, now impact imports from approximately 60 U.S. trade partners whom President Trump has labeled worst offenders due to perceived unfair trade practices. The move signifies a dramatic escalation in the global trade landscape, prompting widespread apprehension about potential economic repercussions. The Caribbean region finds itself caught in the crosshairs of these new trade policies. What most Caribbean nations face, a baseline tariff of 10%, oil-producing Guyana is reportedly hit with a higher 38% tariff. A particularly concerning aspect for the Caribbean is the proposed fee on Chinese-made or Chinese-flagged vessels visiting U.S. ports. This fee, potentially reaching $1.5 million, could significantly inflate the cost of doing business in the Caribbean, given the region's heavy reliance on cargo ships for importing goods. Before the tariffs took effect, IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva stated on April 3, 2025, expressing concern about the potential global impact, quote, "We are still assessing the macroeconomic implications of the announced tariff measures, but they clearly represent a significant risk to the global outlook at a time of sluggish growth. Georgieva emphasized the need for international cooperation, stating, quote, "It is important to avoid steps that could further harm the world economy. We appeal to the United States and its trading partners to work constructively to resolve trade tensions and reduce uncertainty." End quote. The IMF plans to share its assessment in the upcoming World Economic Outlook during the IMF World Bank spring meetings. In response to the unfolding situation, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis has called for a multi-pronged approach involving advocacy, education, food sustainability, and a shift in purchasing habits. Recognizing the widespread impact of the tariffs, the Prime Minister emphasized the importance of presenting a strong evidence-based case for the Caribbean.
There's hardly any country in the world that can escape. Not even the large economies can really escape. Not China, not Canada, not Mexico. So our argument with the US is that we want to carve out, because with us, you have a significant surplus of $54 billion.
Highlighting the trade imbalance between the US and the Caribbean, the Prime Minister asserted,
"So if the argument is these countries have surpluses with us and it's unfair to us, fair enough, what about the countries like us that have deficits with you?" And so we are going to see what that will be. I think that question was received, and I think when the Secretary of State was in the Caribbean, he said he will take that back to Washington. And so we are waiting what the response would be.
The Prime Minister also stressed the need for public awareness and understanding.
All people need to know. This is not government dependent, as some people want to make it out to be. This is beyond government. So all people need to come together and understand this. This would affect prices of certain things, or has the potential to affect prices of certain things, certain goods, certain services.
The Prime Minister acknowledged the potential need for adjustments in consumer behavior, stating,
"We might be called upon to change what we consume, what type of services we access. We might be called upon to do that based on the cost. Because let's say you're accustomed to one particular type of rice, but that rice is coming from a country that there's a tariff. But you can get the rice, let's say, from South America, Guyana, northern Brazil, that is much cheaper. Then we might just have to say, look, we might have to eat a different type of rice. It is a reality."
In a move toward greater self-sufficiency, Prime Minister Drew announced plans to boost local food production.
That is why now we are going to now start to, as I said, farm 100 acres immediately. And before the year done, we want to have about 300 acres under production of food for our people.
CARICOM Chair and Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, echoed concerns about the potential economic fallout, emphasizing the Caribbean's reliance on imports.
Our Caribbean economies are largely reliant on imports. Just go to the supermarket or visit the mall or the hardware shop or the electronics store, and you will see that most of the things there are not produced in this region. Many of those commodities are either purchased directly from the United States of America or pass through the United States of America on their way to the Caribbean region.
She attributed this dependence to a legacy of our colonial dependence, but also acknowledged efforts to diversify the economies of the Caribbean region. Motley warned of the potential impacts on consumers.
This trade war and the possibility of a $1 million to $1.5 million levy on all Chinese-made ships entering U.S. harbors will mean higher prices for all of us at the corner shop, higher prices at the supermarket, higher prices at the electronics store, higher prices for us at the shop, higher prices for us at the restaurant, higher prices for us at the car dealership and beyond.
She stressed that these issues are not distant problems, noting,
"But the reality, my friends, is that if you buy food, if you buy electronics, if you buy clothes, it will impact you."
Motley outlined a strategy for the region, calling for re-engagement with the United States, regional unity, investment in local agriculture and manufacturing, and strengthened ties with other nations.
We must not rely solely on one or two markets. We need to be able to sell our Caribbean goods to a wider, more stable global market.
Appealing directly to President Trump, Mia Mottley emphasized the Caribbean's friendship with the United States, urging him to
consider your decades-long friendship between your country and ours, and look to the Caribbean, recognizing that the family ties, yes, are strong. Let us talk, I hope, and let us work together to keep prices down for all of our people.
U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer recently shared that nearly 50 countries have approached him to discuss the tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump during a Senate Finance Committee meeting on April 8, 2025.
Poverty, unemployment, and underemployment are pressing challenges in the Caribbean, affecting economic mobility, stability, and opportunities for young people. Although the region has made strides over the years, fragile economic growth and low-quality jobs are holding millions back, according to the World Bank. Study shows a high youth unemployment rate. In 2023, the youth unemployment rate in the Caribbean was at 24%, while 1 in 4 people still lived below the poverty line in Latin America and the Caribbean. To shed light on the matter, the World Bank hosted a webinar on April 8, 2025, dubbed Job Poverty in the Caribbean, Youth Perspective. On the panel was Nivision Youth Roger Williams. One of the questions on the table was, what do you think is the biggest barrier young people face in finding decent jobs today? Williams pointed to a lack of opportunities.
I think a grand overarching answer to this question would just be the simple phrase, lack of opportunities. And I could break down lack of opportunities into lack of decent skilled job opportunities that provide a perfect match for the skills that young people possess or can possess in a fair system. And this, of course, cements the need for economic diversification. I think it was Clemente who mentioned in his presentation that many countries in the Caribbean are so dependent on tourism and the financial services sector that jobs are sort of limited to those areas. I could use the example of St. Kitts and Nevis. So I also think that there's a lack of tertiary education opportunities that are made available to youth. Of course, you do have the exceptions of Barbados and Trinidad and Tobago, where tertiary education is heavily subsidized. But in other countries where this is not the case, tertiary education is seen almost as a privilege. And not a right. And this is in fact troubling.
Preceding the webinar, the World Bank invited university-level students aged 18 to 29 to participate in a Caribbean regional opinion essay competition on poverty. Roger Williams was identified as the second-place winner as his views, aspirations, and solutions on the topic captured the attention of the judges. Williams focused on St. Kitts and Nevis in his opinion piece, sharing that there is a jobs and skills shortage issue. He noted that an over-reliance on tourism, financial services, and the CBI has contributed to jobs and skill shortages in the Federation, which further contributes to job poverty. That is, despite being employed, people do not earn enough to lift themselves out of poverty. The first place winner of the World Bank's essay competition, Jamaica's Abigail Morgan, would travel to Washington, D.C. for the World Bank's Youth Summit May 19 to 20, 2025, whilst the second placer, Roger Williams, and third placer, David Salmon from Jamaica, will have exclusive sit-downs with World Bank's Caribbean leadership to discuss their ideas and insights. Williams, passionate about sustainable economic growth and development in the Caribbean, is hopeful that in the face of global challenges, leaders would talk less and act more. The Nevis Disaster Management Department, NDMD, is encouraging all residents, farmers, and relevant stakeholders to remain alert and proactive as drought conditions remain a concern across the region. The Caribbean Drought Bulletin for April 2025, published by the Caribbean Drought and Precipitation Monitoring Network, revealed mixed weather conditions across the region between December 2024 and February 2025. St. Kitts and Nevis in particular was predominantly normal to moderately dry. Looking ahead, regional experts predict that long-term drought could impact large rivers, reservoirs, and groundwater by the end of May 2025 in areas such as central Cuba, the northern Bahamas, and parts of the Guyanas. However, St. Kitts and Nevis is not currently in a drought alert zone. Though St. Kitts and Nevis is not currently in a drought alert zone, the Nevis Disaster Management Department still recommend preparedness and responsible water use due to the ongoing climate variability and water resource strain across the region. In a notice issued to WINN FM, Nevis Disaster Management Department recommended that households, businesses, and especially the agricultural community practice water conservation and remain informed as no one is immune to the crippling effects effects of drought. The 2025 World Water Day theme, Glacier Preservation, emphasized the impact of climate change on global water sources. Though there are no glaciers in St. Kitts and Nevis, the effects of their loss, rising sea levels, shifting weather patterns, and water shortages underscore the importance of protecting the Federation's water resource. The Federal Minister of Utilities, Conris Maynard, continues to remind consumers of their responsibility to conserve water and emphasizes the need for behavioral change in how water is dealt with.
Our water rates, which have not been increased since 2001, is about the cheapest anywhere in the world. Yet there are many customers that do not pay their water bills. This is not fair and reasonable to those who do pay their bills. We therefore have given the Water Services Department our support to ensure that everyone starts paying their water bills. If you're experiencing any kind of financial difficulties, visit the Water Services Department and discuss with them options for a deferred payment plan to deal with your arrears.
Sharing a report of Sugar Mass 53 at a press conference, the chairperson of the St. Kitts and Nevis National Carnival Committee, Shannon Hawley, revealed the major impacts of the festival across various sectors, highlighting that the festival has grown in scale and economic value.
Based on a recently concluded economic impact assessment, Sugar Mass 53 contributed over $21 million to the local economy. It attracted thousands of regional and international visitors, and we saw a significant increase in participation of residents across all events. We saw the largest crowds at our Junior Calypso competition, the largest juve with over 6,000 participants, over 3,000 mass revelers, and the highest number of mass-scale successful private events. We also saw the highest arrivals at the RLB International Airport, and between 30 to 40% of active carnival attendees were visitors. Sugar Mass 53 had a significant and lasting impact on specific sectors such as hospitality, transportation, food and beverage, retail, banking, and public administration.
Looking ahead to Sugar Mass 54, the Carnival Committee has set out early to prepare for the festival slated for December 12, 2025 to January 2, 2026. Registration for the prestigious Miss St. Kitts Nevis Queen pageant has already opened with a registration deadline of April 25, 2025. It targets bold, intelligent, talented and fierce young ladies between the ages of 18 and 26. The winning cash prize for the Miss St. Kitts Nevis Queen was increased to $25,000. Additionally, the Carnival Committee requested a creative, catchy and concise slogan for Sugar Mass 54. The deadline for entries is Tuesday, April 22, 2025. Entries must be sent to info@skncarnival.com. The winner will receive a $500 cash prize and free entry to all national carnival events for Sugar Mass 54. Known for its colorful costumes and exuberant celebrations, Sugar Mass traditionally features calypso music, with soca music now predominating. Private event promoters, Juve and Grand Parade troops were invited to register for Sugar Mass 54, as the activities involving those groups increasingly prove to be highly sought after. The registration deadline is April 30, 2025. The full festival calendar will be released to the press and the general public in early June 2025, 6 months prior to the official start of Sugar Mass 54. As a reeling nation mourns the slaying of 60-year-old nurse Aislinn Pitt Garnett, investigators in St. Kitts and Nevis are trying to put the pieces together to determine what led to the tragedy. Nurse Pitt Garnett was murdered in the wee hours of the morning on Saturday, April 5, 2025 at New Road, St. Kitts. The death of the staff nurse sent shockwaves across the Federation, as her killing broke a 6-month lull in homicides within the Federation. According to a police report, Miss Pitt Garnett was found unresponsive in a bedroom with multiple wounds about the body. She was examined and subsequently pronounced dead at the scene. A male suspect was taken into custody to assist with the investigation. The police requested that anyone with any information vital to the investigation communicate with the force. Meanwhile, Dr. Rhonda Dennis Bradshaw, principal nursing officer, spoke fondly of the nurse whom patients and medical colleagues had grown to love and appreciate. Speaking of nurse Pitt Garnett, Bradshaw said, quote, "This loss is a heavy one and the pain is raw and real. For 36 years, she served this nation with quiet strength and unwavering devotion. Most recently, she worked in the hemodialysis department, where her presence was more than just professional. It was healing. Her compassion touched every patient. Her wisdom guided every decision, and her gentle spirit brought comfort to those in her care. She was the kind of nurse who reminded us why we chose this path: committed, dependable, knowledgeable, kind, and loving in all she did. To her patients, she was a steady hand and a reassuring voice. To her colleagues, she was a source of support, guidance, and a genuine friendship. Her professionalism was unmatched, and her dedication never faltered, even in the most challenging times. The nursing fraternity of St. Kitts and Nevis is in deep mourning. Her sudden passing has shaken us all. We not only lost a colleague, we lost a part of our foundation, someone whose presence enriched our lives and uplifted our spirits. Unquote. Senior Minister Dr. Denzel Douglas reflected upon the memories of Nurse Pitt Garnett, whom he remembered as a dedicated and dependable nurse with whom he worked and always had friendly exchanges. Quote, "Violence has no place in our society, and all acts of violence must be condemned by everyone," Douglas declared. In 2019, Nurse Pitt Garnett was one of 42 nurses awarded by the Joseph and France General Hospital for perfect attendance in 2018, highlighting her dedication to service and unwavering patient care.
The Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force on April 7th, 2025 officially charged Aubrey Webster, 69, also known as Katuba, of Brooklyn, New York, and a national of St. Kitts, with the murder of Iselin Pitt, a 60-year-old resident of New Road who was brutally stabbed to death on April 5th, 2025. According to the official police release, the incident occurred between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. at the victim's residence in the New Road housing development. Upon responding to a report, officers discovered Miss Pitt unresponsive in her bedroom, bearing multiple wounds. Sadly, she was pronounced dead at the scene by medical personnel. The news of Iselin Pitt's death has sent shockwaves throughout the New Road community and the wider St. Kitts and Nevis. Before the formal charge, Webster was in custody assisting with the investigation. Described as a beloved community nurse, Pitt was a certified dialysis nurse at the hemodialysis unit of the Joseph and France General Hospital. The loss is deeply felt by those who knew her, and the community is grappling with the senseless act of violence. An autopsy was conducted on April 7th, 2025 by resident pathologists Dr. Adrian Nunez and Dr. Nautica Phillip. The autopsy report officially identified the deceased as Iselin Pitt, 60, female of the New Road housing development in St. Kitts. The cause of death was determined to be hypovolemic shock, severe blood or fluid loss that prevents the organs from getting the oxygen and nutrients needed to function due to multiple stab wounds. This homicide marks a tragic disruption to a period of relative reprieve from homicides in the Federation. The Citizen Security Secretariat responded to the incident, expressing sorrow and extending condolences. They noted that St. Kitts and Nevis had gone 5 consecutive months without a homicide, quote, "a feat not witnessed in over 2 decades," end quote. The Secretariat calls on the public to partner with the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force by sharing information and remaining vigilant. They emphasize that, quote, "every citizen and resident has a right to feel safe in their home, in their neighborhood, and in their country," end quote. The police continues to urge cooperation with the community. The community is encouraged to support one another and work together to ensure safety and security in St. Kitts and Nevis. You are listening to the Week in Review here on WINN FM 98.9. Thank you for listening and have a productive week.